Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Powers, the Executive Director of CoLabs, a consortium of federally funded research laboratories and joint research institutions in Colorado. I want to welcome you to another CoLabs webinar where we're going to be learning today about cybersecurity issues for remote work and remote workers. We have Blake Schwank and Curtis Hyde are here from Colorado Computer Support. I've been receiving their email updates for a couple years now, and the video or newsletter style updates on a whole range of computer topics. And for myself, as someone who's very much a virtual worker or otherwise visiting labs and making site visits through the state and having to work from coffee shops or hotels, etc., their advice has always been very insightful, and it led to this conversation that we've arranged for today, knowing that many people within the CoLabs network, whether they are government employees or technologists working for different types of engineering and technology companies, perhaps people working in academia at the colleges and universities, anyone who's working from home or in those other remote settings will find the advice and insight from Blake and Curtis to be very helpful. So I'm grateful for them to make some time for us today, and we'll be hearing more details from them. We will be recording this and make it available for later, so you can please plan to share that or otherwise check it out again if you would like to review some of the information. And lastly, we'll go about 20-30 minutes in a presentation. I'll be moderating any questions that people choose to put in using the chat function. And if you would like to be brought up on screen to have an actual conversation question with them, that's also an option. You can just let me know in your comments there in the chat. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Blake and Curtis. And Blake, let me hand it over to you.
All right. Thank you very much for having us. And yeah, I'm glad you find our videos useful. We started doing those, I think now 3 years ago, we've had a YouTube channel. And especially now that everybody's done watching Game of Thrones, they're running out of things to watch on Netflix. There's several hundred videos there to watch on our YouTube channel, and engage with that or sign up with Curtis and he'll send them over. Yeah, I'm Blake Schwank with Colorado Computer Support. And this is Curtis Hyde. He's our marketing director. And so he's the one that does manages most of the content, and he's the one that can send out video and keep you trained up and entertained. So what we Dan reached out to us because of where we are now in the pandemic. It's interesting to look back and see what we've done to survive technically in a technology standpoint. And then what do we need to look at now? I mean, everybody was really focused on making it work 3 years ago. And now we need to stop and go back and make sure that we don't have any bad habits that are going to get us into trouble. So we're going to walk through that a little bit of sorry, I've had to switch computers here this morning. But as we walk through this, a little bit of agenda, the history of COVID. If you forgot, there's a little bit of history there. What's the impact it's had, and then how do we mitigate it as we go through? As we're going through this, if there's anything you find interesting, it is being recorded, but if you see an aha out there, the easiest way is to automatically save it to your screenshots, is to just hit the Windows key and print screen, and that'll save your entire screen. Now it gets a little bit big if you have 4 monitors out there, it'll save it to your screenshots folder. But if you just hit Windows and then Alt Windows key print screen, it'll just save the active window. And if you need any tips on how to do that, check out Curtis's. He's done a couple videos on it already on how to save screenshots as you're going through it. I find it very handy when I'm watching webinars. There'll be that 1 or 2 slides that you really care about that you want to capture as you go through. Oh, and as we go through this process, Dan, if it is, I'm having a mental block. It is Dan, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm okay being interrupted. So if anybody comes up with a question, feel free to interrupt me. I'd rather have it more interactive in a conversation than to just have people sit out there and not say anything. So my wife and I started this in 2001, got out of the Army after 11 years. We started Colorado Computer Support here in Colorado Springs. And most of our work's been in the Colorado area. We have some work outside of the state. We deal with a variety of businesses and industries down here in Colorado Springs. CMMC and government work is starting to ramp up. Majority of our work, though, is in healthcare, K-12, and a few other industries. So, but we do a lot of focus on things like HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, CMMC compliance. So as people are trying to make sure that they have the right things in place, that's what we do. And then we do basically fit it as our client's IT department. If they're trying to scale and grow, that's what we do. So why are we here? So 43%, you hear about cyber attacks. Well, 43% of cyber attacks are after the small guys. So, you hear about JBS Meats and with Colonial Pipeline, those things hit the news and they're major events. They shut down large swaths of the nation's industries. But really, those are difficult targets. And if you go after Colonial Pipeline or JBS Meats, the world's going to come down on you. And so they're a little bit hesitant to go after those guys. Whereas if they go against go towards the 50-person lab or the 200-person lab, that's a small business that really the FBI's, they want you to report it, but they probably won't go hunt them down like they did with JBS Meats. And when you get hit with ransomware, it takes you a long time to recover, if you can recover at all. So a lot of businesses never ever recover, but of those that recover, 34% of them took more than a week to get back to their data. And even if you have backups in place, it can be hard to recover that because you then have to prioritize in your disaster plan what you're going to go after first. And it gets a bit spendy. It's $133,000 is the average cost of a breach. And most of us IT guys out there know someone or have worked with a client that's had ransomware. We've had a couple where we've been contracted by the insurance company to go in there and do work with them on disaster recovery. So these weren't clients, but they ended up becoming clients for a while we helped clean them up. One of them encrypted their offices in Colorado Springs, LA, and Amsterdam, all in a matter of about 40 minutes, shut down a $150 million company for about 6 weeks. And then just with COVID, it makes us a much bigger target, and it gives a lot of opportunities that we're going to be talk about as we go through this. So, okay. And then, with everybody working at home and just in the office, most breaches are caused by human error. So who's after you? So everybody thinks, and especially back in the day, it used to be the hooded guy in his basement, mom's basement, grandma's basement, drinking Mountain Dew, instant coffee, whatever. And he was just going out and messing with people, trying to, just harass people. Well, now hacking is an industry. This is a call center in India. There's a great guy out there, Mark Rober. He is a NASA scientist, worked at Apple. He's the guy that designed the glitter bomb that after he had a porch pirate, he designed this glitter bomb. He would put out there, people would steal it, and they would go home, open it up. It would send off fart smell and spread glitter all over their house. It was a phenomenal thing. You had to check him out on YouTube. But one of the things he did, there was someone was scammed he started tracking down 4 businesses in India that were scamming people in the US, that were socially engineering and going after them. What he found was that these were real businesses. So they had people coming in, working the call center. They had supervisors. Supervisors were reviewed by their supervisors. They had profit and loss statements. They have, these are real businesses. He ended up getting, I think, 4 of them shut down. And in the meantime, he released rats in the office, sent off farts spray and everything else. But that's what's going after people now. It is real businesses going out and attacking because it's very profitable to go attack small businesses. So that's why we care. And if you want to see something hilarious, go check out Mark Rober and see what he did over there. So what happened? How did we get here? So if we oftentimes we forget that 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, in March, we had this coronavirus thing. So it came up March 11th. It was actually declared a disaster. Shortly after that, less than a week, we shut down bars, restaurants, theaters. Schools closed March 18th. And then March 22nd, we started limiting it to 50% in businesses. And 3 days after that, so at Colorado Computer Support, we started messing around trying to think, okay, it looks like it's going to get bad. Let's take our computers home and see what happens. And lo and behold, the next day we got shut down. We scrambled to get everything going. It was hard for us, knowing IT and being able to manage our own IT, to get it set up properly. But there was not enough time for all of the IT. There wasn't enough IT out there, IT guys, to do it properly. So what did we do? We let the employees figure it out. They called anybody with tech skills to help out. They, punched holes for access. A lot of times, especially the IT guys that are new in the industry, there are ways to get you into a network and to get you remote access that are not best practices. They will go and they will set punch holes through to get remote access that open you up to all the hackers. People started Googling for tools. People started, they got stressed out. They started clicking on everything because they would get an email from their boss saying, we need you to do something. And then, and so what did we do? People adapted and they figured it out. So, but it left a bunch of holes, and that's the stuff that we need to go back and fix. So what's this leave us with? The corporate risk. So the corporate risks right now, so we're going to walk through a little bit of corporate risks, the personal risks, what we can do about that. So with the rapid change to work from home, all of a sudden everybody is working from home. I mean, the essential businesses were stuff like hospitals and construction and hardware stores. All the other businesses like your guys, like a lab, everybody had to go work from home. And still, there's a huge number of people that are working from home. There's still 11 million digital nomads out there running all over the countryside, and they're working from coffee shops, they're working from hotels, they're working from, other parts of the world, not just around the US. Around the world, it's something like 35 digital nomads are out there driving around in their camper vans, working, or their RVs. Curtis and I, one of the guys we work with, him and his wife for 2 years drove an RV around the Southeast, and that's how they worked. And to me, that would drive me nuts. It's a little bit too small, but it worked for them. There's a lack of security talent, just like there is with restaurants, with any other industry. There's a lack of talent. Functions that were never remote suddenly must be remote. I'm sure in the laboratory world, all of a sudden you never thought people would be working on things from home. And they were. We had to get remote access authentication. They had to rapidly increase the capacity that was there. So if we had stuff that people needed to get into, and we had clients that all their servers were sitting internally because of security concerns with the cloud, all of a sudden with everybody from home, instead of a little bit of traffic going outbound, now they had 30 people all trying to VPN into the office, trying to get data. And it was hard to scale that up and make sure that we got it set up properly. Rapid implementation of cloud services. If you've ever stood up something on the cloud, what do? You get out your credit card, you go out, you buy it, and you don't read all the instructions or how to secure it because it's so easy to go buy. You just go click, 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 and you set it up. And a lot of companies, if they didn't have solid IT to go in and set it up properly and then go make sure it was set up properly later on, got that stuff set up and left holes in place. And then the expansion of the attack surface. So it used to be if you had an office, if you had a lab somewhere, you had 4 walls, you had a firewall, you had 1 internet connection, maybe 2 internet connections, and that solid firewall was the way in. And you could protect fairly well your entire lab from outside threats. Well, now if you had 50 people in your lab and everybody went home, all of a sudden you had 50 points of access, everybody's router at their house and everybody's home network with what their kids were doing on it were a threat. The home risks, the stress of employees. So all of a sudden you have someone going home, they're working, they got their kids with them. It's a challenge to secure it. And they have, all of a sudden they're stressed out. They're getting emails from teachers, from their boss and everything else. Phishing attacks have gone on the rise. And I know Curtis wanted to show you, he's got a couple of good phishing attacks. Phishing attacks when somebody pretends to be someone else and sends you an email. you want to, can you share those real quick, Curtis?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I need you to unshare for me to share.
Oh, 3 years into Zoom.
There we go. So let me pull this up. Oh, finding it on my screen. So here's a good example of, let me know if that's showing.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good example of someone that sent this to me. And as you can see, this is just a basic email that you may or may not be able to receive from someone where it says, "Hi, Curtis, I'd love to surprise some of our staff with some gift cards today. Regards, Blake Schwank." So I did receive this. I got a good laugh out of it just immediately. However, some people might not have great recognition skills of what to look for inside of a fish. So when you receive an email that might sound a little unusual or a request that sounds off, that's automatically one type of triggering aspect of just randomly buying something for employees. So some things you want to spot for and look for in an email is the initial request that you receive from someone, that raises an eyebrow. That's the first thing you want to collect. Also, signature blocks are really big giveaways. This is not a unique way that I would see Blake as far as a signature block would go. So that's another red flag for you to look for in screening emails that may pop into your inbox. So you always want to keep an eye out for what that might look like. Now, in the whole world of Zoom, of people going home, signature blocks may have changed because you're working on different devices, maybe trying to email people from your cell phone temporarily. So these really worked quite well during that time frame, but we're trying to get people caught up to speed of recognizing these. Now, another big giveaway you want to look for in the body of the of an email, which this one's a little bit shorter, but is spelling errors, because a lot of times it's AI that's putting together these emails and rapidly building them. So you want to look for grammatical function problems or issues. That's typically a good giveaway too. And then the last thing to look at is the very top, where you see it says it's from Blake Schwank, but you'll see a very unusual email address attached to it. A lot of people don't recognize that aspect. So if you look at that, our URL is nothing, whatever this URL is, where it came from. And this is a really big giveaway too. So you want to keep an eye and make sure the name matches the email address that you received this from. Another good way to test this is what you can do is just copy this back end of this email address, this URL, drop that inside of Google and see if it loads an actual website. That's another giveaway too, to find out if it's a legitimate company that's talking to you. Even if it loads, it's not a dead giveaway safety, but at least it lets you know if there's a risk. Now, we always get asked, hey, what do I do if I receive a message like this? The easiest thing to do is what we call voice verification. Pick up your phone and I would call Blake and say, hey, I just got this message from you. It's kind of funny. Is this actually you? Call that person, or over here on this email, hit forward and forward this to your IT guy or your IT company. Ask them to take a look at it. Trust me, your IT would like to spend 15 minutes looking at this, compared to going into what could be a potential disaster situation of what's happening with you and your email. So this is just a good example of how to analyze and look at things. Take your time, don't rush it. And a lot of times people get caught is because they are in a rush of a busy day. And that's just one thing to keep on the forefront with that. So again, if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to speak out. If not, we can definitely address this at the end. And I've got another great example we'll talk about too. So Blake, did you want anything to add to that?
No,
Curtis, Blake, let me jump in. I'll just remind the folks in the audience, if you did want to ask a question, use the chat function, or again, you can also prompt me to say, hey, can I come up on screen, Dan, and I can bring you up and we can make it more of a conversation.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
this
Curtis.
is interesting, Curtis. I did a podcast for Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center yesterday, and the guy I was doing the podcast with had this exact same email. He had to call his boss and go, hey, you really want me to get you gift cards? And
yes.
So always, always verify.
So you know what? I have an attendee who's raised his hand and recognized his name. Haven't seen him in person since COVID time. So just a moment.
All right.
Hello, Martin. I'm bringing you up here. You don't have to be on screen, but you can ask your question by voice here.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know that the chat function is actually disabled. So raising the hand is the only thing you can do. And the other thing I wanted to mention is just a minute ago, I got one of those phishing things on my phone, pretending to be the U.S. Postal Service, asking me to re-up my forwarding instructions or something.
Oh, okay. That's a great point. My next example was going to be talking about phones. So I'm glad you brought that up. So we're going to talk about an example of a phone phish as well too. So I appreciate, Martin, you talking about that, which I'll show an example of that right now too.
Okay. And also, thank you for letting us know that, Martin. I just went in. It must have been a default setting I wasn't aware of on Zoom. So I've now enabled the chat. If anybody wants to be part of it, they don't have to. They don't necessarily have to come on the screen.
Yep. Thank you. All right. So is everyone able to see the new image? Can you guys see the new image I put up?
Yep.
Okay. So this is another example of what's happening as well too, due to the at-home workforces. We started relying on our cell phones more. Our cell phones are very powerful computers. They do a lot of things and they connect to our offices, to the wireless. We have applications that connect to each other. So they're a great thing that hackers want to attack as well too. Now, one of the biggest upticks ever was the use of Netflix when everyone went home, streaming services. So also people were sending out attacks through cell phones saying, hey, your monthly payment has been declined and the account is restricted. And they're trying to entice you to click links to go places. Now, numerous things can happen if you click this link. It can embed some malware, some Trojans on your phone. It could send you to an offsite where they're just trying to get your credit card number and entice you to get this to log in and give up your credit card information so they could just use your credit card freely. So when you get these text messages, the best thing to do about this is just go to netflix.com yourself, type it in the URL, www.netflix.com, and check your account manually on your own. I know that's kind of a pain compared to using a link. However, if it saves your credit card information or someone who's embedding a virus on your phone, it makes a 10-minute loophole compared to what could be days or months or years of identity problems and stealing of information. So not just your computer, but also pay attention to things that are sent to your cell phone. And just as Martin brought up, USPS, all the mailing options, Amazon, UPSs, those have ballooned as far as ways that people are trying to hack, because those are all major services we've used and we are still continuing to use. So look for those big brands, look for those unusual components, manually check and log in yourselves through different devices and ignore these type of cell phone requests. So those are just two major examples we wanted to share about how to take care of and identify those. So if anyone has a question about those, feel free now or later, whichever is easiest for you.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, stop sharing.
Yep.
Okay.
Go for it.
No, that was good. The I lost my. Sorry, technical issues here. All right, we're back. Okay, so like Curtis was talking about, so a lot of that is
We can't
social,
see anything. Just give me a heads up.
Social engineering attacks, right? And that's also how they get the phishing scams, where they send somebody an email asking them to email or send an urgent wire. There's a company here in town we talked to that had sent over $1 million in urgent wires because the criminals that, again, are big businesses over in other parts of the world, did the social engineering. They did the research. They found out who the CFO is. They found out who the CEO is. Then they really pretend to be them and get them to, they trick them into the urgency of sending a fake email or sending a wire somewhere else in the world. Home networks are a big risk. You got your kids on there. Ideally, we segment a business network from the home network. Going to campgrounds, coffee shops, hotel networks. Dan said he likes to go work at the coffee shop. You really got to be careful when you go to those. And that adds a risk, and why we do things like VPNs. The kids are a huge risk at home. You know, when this first started out, we had people working on their business stuff in the office by using a home computer, which just is super scary. But what else do you do when the governor sends you home with no notice on the 25th of March? And then everybody forgets how to travel. I'm finally getting back into it, but I know that first couple plane trips, I was leaving stuff everywhere. I'd walk off, I had no idea what I was doing. So we want to make sure that, you know, we're not losing data at the TSA checkpoint. So how do we mitigate it? And I know we're short on time here, Dan. We'll hustle along and 5-10 minutes. Are you gonna hang up on me? Okay, so how do we mitigate it? The corporate level, most corporations now have a good handle on it. We need policies. We got to have a disaster recovery plan so that if the worst thing happens, if it's one person in their house, depending on what you have on your computer, that could be a disaster, right? Or it could be a reportable incident if you need to be something like HIPAA compliant or something. Security awareness training is big. We send that out to our clients every month. We send them out little phishing attempts, fake phishing attempts, but also little videos to remind them of what they should be doing. We need to go back and really review the settings that we made over the last 3 years. So back in March and April of 2020, there were people scrambling and making changes that they said, oh, we'll go back and change that. Well, then maybe the IT guy that made that change to open up a hole, to punch a hole in your firewall to allow remote access, maybe they moved on to a new job and no one's ever gone back to change that. Or maybe they're still in the same job. It's just that with the chaos of 2020, they had a complete mental, they forgot to go back. They didn't make a note. They didn't make a reminder to go back and do it. And they've never gone back. So we want to make sure we audit the ways that we have remote access, whether it's like remote desktop or go to my PC, make sure that those are legitimate and are still being used and still necessary, and that they're securely locked down. And part of that is having a change management process. So when somebody goes and makes a change to open a hole for Dan to get into the network, that actually there's another IT person that's validating it and making sure that it makes sense, and making sure that it is it's secure. Because any IT guy, can log into a firewall and muscle their way through and make changes. They just may not be the most secure changes. Have multi-factor authentication on everything. That's when you log into Amazon and it sends you a text saying, is this really you? When you do it from a separate device. You should also have that on your Google email, on your Office 365, on your corporate network, so that when you log in, you have to pull out your phone and get some credentials to get into the stuff that's really important. And then we talked about remote access tools, review, the threat detection tools that are out there, and then put an external banner on email. The guy that I was meeting with yesterday at Mount Carmel, actually the other thing that stuck out was his boss. They have a banner on their email. We have a banner on our email. So if it's sent from somebody other than coloradosupport.com, it actually says it's an external sender. And you can put that on your email so that if I email Curtis and it says it's an external sender, it gives them an additional bit of pause. So what do we do at home to mitigate it? Only use business cloud tools. Don't just go out, if you're going to run business stuff on it, don't go out and get a personal Dropbox account or a personal Box account or something. Make sure it's a legitimate business account. And especially if it's, we see this with small businesses, partners will share a login to a free Google Drive box. Well, then the partnership falls apart and one of them won't give the credentials to the other and they're locked out. Whereas if it's a business account, you actually can get into it as the business. If it's a personal account, Google's not going to help you recover. Always think before you click. Only get support from known IT companies. A friend of mine called me up the other day. They had a pop-up on their screen, said, oh my gosh, you got something on your computer called Microsoft. Here's the number. They called Microsoft. They allowed them to remote control them. They should never have done that. They should have picked up the phone, called I don't know if you find Microsoft in the yellow pages or how you find them, but you Google Microsoft and call them, or call your trusted IT, call your IT department, call an IT company, a legitimate IT company, okay? And do some Googling before you hire an IT company. Find out that they've got good ratings, call a friend, get a referral to find a decent IT person. Make sure you're doing work on a work computer, not the home kitchen computer. Use a VPN anytime you're sending private data and you're in a non-trusted site especially, but use a VPN always to get into your corporate data in the office. Curtis mentioned Netflix and that scam on Netflix.
Blake?
Yeah.
Pardon me, Blake. I want to interrupt. Could you describe, some people might not even know what the acronym VPN is, but tell us a little bit more about VPN usage.
So a VPN is a virtual private network. So when you go into a coffee shop and you go and get into your bank, a lot of times there will be, or not a lot of times, it is very possible using some tools to set up a man in the middle or a fake access point there, so that your login to get into your bank goes through that fake access point and then to the bank. If you do that without a virtual private network in place, you could actually, that data is possible to read that data when it passes through. Sometimes they can unencrypt it. If you do a VPN, a virtual private network, that is a connection. There's two ways to do it. You could have a server in your office that you connect to, and it adds an extra layer of encryption. The other way to do it is you can go out and get a subscription online. I use a company called Strong VPN. I think it's 10, 15 bucks a month. But it gives me, if I'm somewhere where I don't trust the network, I can log into that first before I get onto my bank or the corporate network or something else where I'm sharing private data. And it really then obscures what I'm doing on the network from anybody else that might be sniffing. So, okay, thank you for asking to clarify that. So
I think that's a real helpful tip that for those of us going into airports, coffee shops, in essence, anywhere that says, here's our free Wi-Fi. I think I've heard some stories of people who they don't know where they necessarily got something on their computer, but that was the way in which they were accessing the internet, and it was just likely they got into a somewhat toxic internet access.
Yeah, we were scrambling at the start of COVID to get all of our clients set up with VPNs back into the corporate network, because it is super easy to, if you've got a small business network, it is super easy to log into the firewall or the router and open up a port that's 3389 is the port, 3389. And what that does is it allows you to go home and remote control into your desktop in the office or to your server in the office. Well, that is one of the most common avenues of ransomware attacks and breaches, because if you just open it up and you leave it open, people can hammer at it. The bad guys can hammer at it all day long. And all they have to do is go out and scan the network. There's tools that will go out there and scan the entire internet for this port to be open. And that's what we saw a lot of less experienced IT people do 3 years ago, was just pop in, open up 3389 to their server. It's called Remote Desktop Protocol is what it is. RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. And if you do it over a VPN, it's not a bad thing. If all you do is open up that port, it's a horrible, scary thing, and you will get breached. So Curtis mentioned the Netflix trick. So if you have a password manager like LastPass, we use LastPass in the office. And what that does is that tracks that it's netflix.com and it ties your password to it. So when you go to log into Netflix, even if you mistype it, right? So you go and you Google and you accidentally throw in an extra character or something. If you misspell Netflix, LastPass is not going to see it as a legitimate domain and send your credentials, whereas you might if you're not paying attention. So definitely use LastPass, because that also allows you to automatically generate and store passwords, which, you know, I think it was 1 out of 3 people use the same password across multiple sites. You don't want to do that. You want to make them crazy difficult and use a password manager like LastPass. It works on my phone, it works on my iPad, works on my Windows machine and my Mac. It seamlessly syncs them all. Back up all your data. We talked about the airport. You leave your laptop in the seat back or at TSA. You want to make sure you can restore it, or worst case, if you get ransomware, that you can put it all back together. And then keep your family off your computer. Okay, please don't let the kids play games on your work computer. It's a professional computer, not a personal computer. Okay, and so what do? Finally, something bad happens. First of all, don't panic. You want to disconnect your computer. So if you notice something weird happening, or like happened to my friend of mine where they let the person in, they're remote controlling them, unplug, disable your Wi-Fi and shut down. If you disable your Wi-Fi, there's usually a key along the F keys, or you can click down at the bottom right and disconnect it. Call a trusted IT person or your corporate IT to talk to. Don't hide. So many times we see this, we start tracing stuff down, and what happened is somebody got in trouble, somebody did something wrong, and when that happens, a lot of times employees are like kids. They'll just kind of hide that, something under the couch and not tell anybody. We need to know about it so that we can remediate it. People are now blaming the attackers. It used to be that they would blame the employee, they would blame corporate IT, they'd blame the corporation. If you remember Target, no one was ever going to shop at Target again when they lost all the credit card records and stuff, when their HVAC system got hacked. Now people are turning against the attackers. They understand that you can't protect yourself 100%. And that's why we do stuff in layers. So don't hide, don't panic. Make sure you document as best you can. The exact time and date, what time zone you're in, if it's appropriate. Take pictures with your phone if you can of what's happening. It helps reconstruct, helps recover later on. And then we implement our disaster recovery plan. That's why we have disaster recovery plans in place, or we want to, is so that when something bad happens, we can put the pieces back together. And then make sure you talk to a competent IT professional if you don't have corporate IT. Okay, call a friend and say, hey, who do you guys use for IT? My stuff just got breached, or I think I was breached. If you think you were breached, shut down and call people. Okay. And that's about it. That's the last slide. I know we went a little bit over. I'm not sure why that says hit up on the top. I think I was trying to edit something, but so if you have any questions, are there any questions out there, Dan?
Yeah, there are actually a few. First, Curtis, I wonder if those links that you have, if you're able to put them into the chat function, if people want to click on them, in particular, wherever there might be, maybe it's one of your email addresses. I mentioned at the beginning of this, I've been getting your email updates and tips for a couple of years. And for everyone who's on the call, I'd really recommend the spectrum of different topics that Blake and Curtis are aware of and provide quick answers to, and just a first often overview. Here's something you should know about. I found really helpful. They're a great resource in that way. So a couple questions, Blake. Back to the VPN topic. Nancy was asking if VPNs work globally when you're traveling.
In general, depends on where you go. So yeah, I was just in Germany. They worked fine over there. But if you go to China, if you go to somewhere like that, there's a lot more control on what you can do on the internet.
I'm guessing the VPN company itself would be able to give you a list of where they are blacklisted, or otherwise where they don't function.
Yeah, I would, if you're going to, most countries that you're going to, that you're comfortable traveling in, are going to be fine for going and using technology. If you're going to a country that is known to be not friendly, jump on the State Department, see what they say about technology. You could Google, traveling with a computer to China. I know some businesses that went over there for the Olympics, and basically they took burner phones, took burner computers and everything else. They left everything else at home. So
yeah, that's a good, I think the State Department tends to be pretty both cautious, but also pragmatic and clear on here's where you might have concerns.
No,
okay.
Sorry, Dan. Another component of VPNs too is when you sign up for Strong VPN or these VPN services, you can add and extend those to your cell phones. So once again, those are computers. When we're traveling, we're in coffee shops, a lot of us connect to free Wi-Fi, and we log into a ton of information, bank accounts, IT things related to our companies through our cell phones. Make sure you turn the VPN on your cell phone so it encrypts that traffic that you're using on your cell phone too. So another big feature as well too is cell phones.
Yeah, good tip. I'm guessing for work I have an Android phone, and then personally for the family we have Apple phones or iPhones. Both of them, I believe, will, unless told not to, will automatically connect to whatever Wi-Fi is available.
Yeah,
and that's something where I've realized that we could be putting ourselves in some sort of risky scenario without even thinking about it. So settings on your phone, I suppose, is another place to be more aware.
Yes, sir.
Yes, be careful. Just be careful everywhere. If it plugs into something, it's dangerous.
Okay.
If it's got technology.
My question that Martin had relative to making backups. would there be threats to any external drives? Are they also
Yeah.
vulnerable, or more so just broadly, what's the best backup kind of plan?
So no, that's a great question, and we could
Mhm.
talk. We could talk for several boring hours about backups, because it's not sexy, but when you need it, you definitely want it, and that's why you ask a great question about whether or not it's vulnerable. So if anything that's plugged into your network is vulnerable. Now there's ways to mitigate that, but if you have it plugged in, so there's some tools that will help encrypt that, keep it away from the bad guys if it's plugged in. But the only sure answer is air gapping your backups. And what we mean by that is that somebody actually takes that, or some automated process takes that backup and separates it from your network. In the old days, we used to have, before we had big fat pipes, we would physically take an external drive or tapes to the bank, put them in the safe deposit box, or send them off with Iron Mountain to take somewhere else. Or worst case, someone would take them home. But the risk of that then is you have a drive that may not be encrypted sitting in someone's house. If it gets stolen, all of a sudden you have a compliance issue. So the way we do it now is automated, because anything we've ever had a human do eventually falls apart and someone forgets to do it. Then they forget to do it on day 3, and then all of a sudden they never do it. And we've been to places where someone promised to the office manager or the business owner was guaranteeing that they would take and swap it every day. Eventually they forget, and then it never gets done. Then something bad happens. So there's multiple tools out there that automatically send it off site. So Barracuda or Datto or Acronis, those are tools that'll do it. Veeam will do it, where it syncs it somewhere else offsite in an offsite data center, where all you have to do is have it send a report in when it fails, and then visually check it. So even though we have all of ours set to report when they fail, we also have somebody whose job it is to open up a ticket. They automatically get a ticket every day, and they go actually look and make sure that there's green dots on everything, that everything's actually backing up.
Right.
So, and the other problem with external drives is they have a huge failure rate compared to most other things. So you want to make sure you really keep an eye on them if you're using external drives, and test them.
Okay, good to know. I have an external drive that's just got redundant family albums, digital photos. So because the kids want to access them on the computer real easily, but I thought at any moment the computer could crash or be broken, like literally crash if they drop it. So, but I hadn't thought of the hard drive almost like a vehicle. I'm guessing you can't just leave it in the garage forever and not run it. You got to keep checking it out.
Oh no, if it's unplugged and put in the safe, it'll sit there for decades. Now the problem is, in 20 years, Dan, or 40 years, when the great grandkids pull it out, are they going to be able to plug that USB thingy into something? Are we going to have so what I do personally for all those photos is have a personal Google account, and that's where all the photos go. That way, when I take a photo on my phone, or if I take them from the SLR, I upload them into a folder, and then they're out there. I can share them out to other people as I need to, because storage is so cheap right now. I mean, if you take a ton of photos, you might spend $5, $10, $15 a month to back them up, but that's not that big of an expense to make sure that they're safe. Or there's also Carbonite and a few other things that are good for backing up your personal computer.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much for this first overview. I'm sure there are different themes and topics people would have heard of that prompted a few more questions. And also, I know often when I've had these kind of webinars, you've given people things to think about that they can go back to their team, back to their organization, or even their own family and say, hey, what is our plan for this kind of concern? And that's a way that you've also been helpful in this webinar today.
Good.
I want to encourage everyone who's watching this, and knowing this will be shared again within our both of our organizations' YouTube channels and other communications. People, please circle back around to Blake and Curtis. Check out the information that they have. I've just found them sincerely helpful. This isn't any sort of paid marketing effort on their behalf. It was really a conversation among friends saying, hey, I'd like to give you guys some exposure and talk more about what you all work on. So thanks again, guys, for today. And everyone, thanks for your support and engagement with CoLabs. There'll always be some more lab tours now coming up. We're coming out of COVID, so pay attention. You can always reach me at dan@colabs.org. That's co-labs. And that's also our website. So with that, thanks everyone for making some time today. And guys, I appreciate all your insights.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Really
thank you.
appreciate it. So anytime you want us back, let us know.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to pause this.